Celeb Savant is a career retrospective type interview focusing on singers, actors, and industry experts. Join Barrett Edelstein now as he dives into the entertainment world.
Rachael Sage is a New York singer, songwriter, poet, arranger, and producer. Since founding her label Impress Records over 2 decades ago, the New York-based alternative folk artist has consistently delivered a vibrant and dynamic array of albums. Her eclectic tour history includes performances alongside renowned artists such as Annie DeFranco, Beth Hart, Howard Jones, and Grammy winners Sean Colvin and Judy Collins, with whom she also recorded a critically acclaimed duet of Neil Young's Helpless. As a 6-time Independent Music Award-winning musician and producer, Rachael has released over 20 diverse albums and EPs, earning recognition as a John Lennon Songwriting Contest Grand Prize winner. Rachael's talents have brought her to esteemed festivals such as the Edinburgh Fringe and SXSW, and she has toured globally with her band, The Sequence, from Japan to Berlin. In addition to her musical achievements, Rachael is a philanthropic advocate, supporting various causes, including Why Hunger, the American Refugee Committee, Memorial Sloan Kettering Hospital, and the National Network for Youth. Up next on Celeb Savant, we've got Rachael Sage. Where do we find you in the world, and how are you doing?
I'm here in my bedroom, otherwise known as my boudoir, in upstate New York in the Hudson Valley, but not for long. I'll be back near you very soon.
So do you travel up and down between the UK and New York?
Exactly, yes. Last time I checked, I'm still American, but I feel like I should be given an honorary passport at this point by the UK, because it really is my home away from home.
Okay, let's rewind. At what age did you think, cool, you want to be in the music or entertainment world, creative world? And how did that journey progress to where we are currently?
I love that question because I really don't think it was a conscious choice. I think, I was about 2.5, 3 years old with my legs dangling from the piano bench, and my mom had the good sense, or perhaps the opposite, to schlep me along to some Broadway shows she was seeing. And I came home and I apparently played the score to Oklahoma on the piano.
Oh, wow.
So it just kind of happened. And then I realized I had this ability to sound things out by ear. And, it was kind of an interesting way to navigate my childhood, because even if I was bullied or someone was picking on me, I had this party trick where I could play a song from the top 40 or Billy Joel or whatever it was and kind of awe and distract them. And all of a sudden they were singing along. So it was a helpful skill to have at a young age.
And what were the next steps?
Yes, the next steps were me becoming obsessed with Solid Gold, watching every week, even if I wasn't supposed to be watching TV, sneaking downstairs to watch it. And I think I became, obsessed with the songcraft. I loved writing songs from a young age. At first it was instrumentals, and then I realized this empowering feeling of being able to add lyrics and express things I couldn't in my daily life through music. And I kind of haven't looked back since. I was that kid who, I would see an ad in the paper for a workshop on the music business, and I would beg my parents to let me go and take a train into the city and listen to Tony Visconti talking about production, and so I just, I kind of forced the issue and made it very clear very quickly that this was what I wanted to do with my life.
From 3 to 4 minutes in creating a song, is it easy every time? What motivates it? What invigorates it? Let's unpack your creative brain.
Sure. Well, every day I wake up, I feel like kind of a different person. It's just the way I've always been. And I've been this way since I was a little kid. Maybe it's a Scorpio thing. But I think in some ways it works to my advantage because, first of all, I am, as you may know, also in remission from cancer. So nowadays I just wake up with so much gratitude, and everything is inspiring, you know,
Yes.
like your beautiful face on the screen and just having this conversation.
Yes.
And I get ideas from everywhere, really. Although you can sort of do things to enhance your landscape creatively, like read books and go to films and of course, listen to, you know, myriad other independent musicians, which I have a chance to do quite frequently because I also run a record label.
Oh,
So,
wow. Okay.
you know, my hands are in a lot of pies, and whether it's telling my own story, something I've been through, or musicalizing a poem, or maybe, you know, taking a germ of an idea from something purely imaginative that I've consumed, I don't feel like there's ever really a point where my faucet is totally off. So if anything, it's just about trying to organize those thoughts and ideas and craft them into something that hopefully other people will relate to and enjoy.
Do you always write by yourself, or do you ever collaborate with other people or artists?
I would say 99.99% of the time I write by myself. But
Yeah.
that being said, I always like to put it out into the universe. I just, you know, you have to be invited to the party.
Yes, absolutely.
I think at this point people think I'm just going to write by myself no matter what because I've put out, you know, like 20 releases. So I'm putting it out there today. Fellow songwriters, if you want to collaborate, you know, drop me a DM or something. I would be totally up for it. And in my 20s, I used to write jingles quite a bit. That was how I paid the rent. And that was semi-collaborative because I would get a brief through,
Yes.
of all things, a fax machine, perhaps.
Yes.
And it would just say, like, you know, in the spirit of Cyndi Lauper's Time After Time, you know, let's hear an upbeat ditty with this kind of backbeat about blah, blah, blah. And
Yeah.
I would just kind of crank it out, you know, in 24 hours. But I love that work. And I thought it was really fun. And it was kind of like using my acting training, but in music.
Yes.
And I suppose it was a collaboration because someone else was giving me those prompts.
Yes.
And it's probably quite similar, but with a little bit more of a soulful approach.
For the listeners who do not know, what is a jingle?
A jingle would just be the music you hear in an advert. Yeah. I mean, nowadays, a lot of advertisements use licensed songs that are completely written and arranged and already exist. But that was a trend that didn't start until a few years ago. And before that, we were all writing music for the advertisements, you know, literally on spec, you know, trying to quote unquote win the spot.
Yes.
And, you know, I enjoyed it. It used to be a dirty little secret. Like I didn't talk about it and nobody knew I did it. And now I'm like, you know what? That was cool. And it was a fun way to make a living and got some bizarre free perks along the way. So I look back fondly at that time.
Well, that's great. Fantastic. It's a recognition to own. What percentage now are advertisements using licensed music? Is it 100% or are there still some of those briefs coming through?
I mean, I haven't done that work in decades.
Oh, okay.
That was something I did in my teens and 20s.
Okay.
But I am aware of the dynamic. So
Yes.
I would say it's probably, you know, 75-25 in favor of licensing. It's really gone that way. So a lot of that work dried up. Coincidentally, right when I was invited to go on tour in my late 20s with Ani DeFranco.
Yes.
So that path opened up to me. It was always my goal and my mission to become a touring artist and kind of put myself on the road so I could continue to develop and have that sort of symbiotic relationship between recording and performing live, which is what I still strive for, the opportunity to kind of perform these songs live in front of an audience and explore how they really want to sound before I go into the studio. Doesn't always work that way, but a lot of the time.
What else do you enjoy about performing live?
I mean, the big C word, connection.
Okay.
It's really, that's what it's about for me, is that dialogue and that kind of emotional connection between myself and the audience. And I never know which way a show is going to go, really.
Yes.
I mean, I basically write down a list of all the songs I could do, my active repertoire, and I, you know, make my accompanists vaguely aware of that. But I'm a very spontaneous type of a performer. So
Yeah.
I don't stick to set lists like ever, for better or worse. I used to, but I just kind of threw that away and I haven't really done that in a long time. So even when I'm supporting a larger artist, as I will be for Will Young in September and Hue and Cry in November, I'll do the same thing. I'll probably pick sort of a general playlist of what could work or which couple of songs and which slots. And then I feel it out. I look at the audience and I kind of get a sense of the mood that people are in. Is it a Friday night? Are they trickling in still and coming in late? Or is everybody seated and completely wrapped and it's pin drop quiet? In which case, maybe I can get away with doing a sensitive ballad and telling a story. I love that aspect. And it reminds me in a lot of ways of live theater when I was acting.
Oh, that's fantastic. I've already interviewed Hue and Cry, and Will Young is on my wish list. So putting it out there that happens soon. Was it the thing that allowed you to throw away your set list? Was it being in situations, for example, like where it's pin drop quiet or on a Friday night, and you were structured in the set list and some of the songs didn't go for the situation? Was that the reason that you threw the set list out, or were there other reasons as well?
I mean, I'm sure that's been the case. I've played thousands of shows at this point. So I'm sure, yeah, I probably had those moments where I looked around at the cellist and the violinist and I was like, nope, we're not doing that one. Follow me, and I wouldn't even tell them, just like, follow me. And then they know the repertoire inside and out for the most part. I'm certainly not going to spring a brand new song on them in front of a large live audience, although I might do that in a coffee shop and actually say to the audience and let them in on it and say, hey guys, you up for a brand new song? I wrote this morning and I think I know it, but I might spontaneously adjust it, and if they're like, yeah, I'll go for it, or they're like, play something else, I'll kind of take their lead. At the end of the day, I am there to uplift and encourage and, kind of help folks go to another plane from their everyday. So I'll use whatever colors are in my palette to do that.
So I'm that guy that's normally standing up right in front, dancing, jamming, doing my thing. I'll take my phone out and take a couple of videos, a couple of photos, and I'll put it away. I notice that the people around me, they oftentimes 70, 80%, 90% of the time videoing, posting, tweeting, photoing. From your perspective, being on the stage and seeing a bunch of phones, do you feel that takes away from the energy of the interaction with the audience and from them being in the moment? Or it's just where society is at this stage?
That's a tough one. A few years back, I might have said it could get to a point where it's a little irritating and you're wondering kind of why they're present rather than watching it on YouTube,
Yes, exactly.
But I think I feel a little bit differently now because it's a pot we're not putting a lid on. It's out of our hands.
Yeah.
And sometimes in life and in culture, there are things where the culture is kind of leading you to some extent. And it's the artist's job, perhaps, to either decide this isn't for me and go even more niche for the people who will never do that, or who will, concede and agree to put the phone away with a gentle comment, or to just go with it and lean into it, which is kind of what I would rather do. I mean, at this point in my career, I don't see the harm in anyone absorbing music and enjoying a concert however they want to, with the exception of when it's just obscuring someone else's view or impeding on their experience. For instance, I went to see Elvis Costello a few weeks ago at the Beacon. It was amazing. Oh, sorry, it was at Radio City, actually, double bill with Daryl Hall.
Oh, amazing. Fantastic.
Yeah, it was amazing. And it got to a point where some of the phones were like in my face, and there was no rake to the audience. And I was kind of like trying to see around it.
Yeah.
If it had gotten maybe a little bit worse, I might have just gently been like, hey, just wondering if maybe for this tune but it's tricky because who am I to tell someone else how to enjoy their probably all too expensive ticket to see someone they love, and maybe they're sharing it with their kid who couldn't be there, or I doubt it's all about just the addiction to the phone. I think there are some thoughtful ways that people do kind of gather footage and share it and help spread the word or whatever. So I don't know.
It's interesting. I love hearing all the responses from the various artists and from you. Thank you. Another point of discussion or debate that I like to discuss with you. So I love me a CD. I still budget for my CDs every month. I love the aesthetic of holding something, the journey of the choice, the journey of the unpacking, the booklet, the listening from song 1 to 10 or 15. I'm not sure if you're aware that CDs, even cassettes and vinyls are making a massive comeback. Vinyls alone last year in the UK, 5.9 million copies sold, the biggest since 1990. And cassettes and CDs are also on an upward trajectory. But we've also got these streaming platforms whereby people consume music on. What is your observation and perception of the landscape at the moment?
Vinyl, we have seen the upsurge, and our listeners collectively really are eager to have the vinyl and to pre-order that and help kind of fund that ecosystem for the independent artists, especially. So we have a lot of fun with the artwork, and we do creative, cool things like colored vinyl and sparkly vinyl. And I put a complete art gallery in my last vinyl. I'm also a visual artist, so I had a painting for each song, and they were quite sizable. And, the whole thing opened up from the front like a tablet, which I'd never done before. And on each side, there were these paintings. And so I really, made a meal of that experience. As far as CDs, to be frank, I haven't noticed that upsurge, as you said, but more power to the format if that's happening. Hasn't really impacted us. I still print up a limited amount and I bring them on tour, and it's something that people seem to want signed, and I don't know if they're playing it or not, but I make it as personal as I can. And as you can see, I have a lot of fun with the art. Again, I make my own, kind of set design. But yeah, I'm not sure how CDs are going to go. That's one that we're still always kind of gauging demand. And I'll even ask my listeners, how many of you would love to have this on CD? Because it's helpful for me to do that polling. I'm going to keep doing it for now, and we'll just see. Streaming, again, it's like the phones, it's here to stay, but I'm strongly in favor of all of the amazing individuals and organizations who advocate on behalf of artists to see more of a percentage of what's sold through streaming, because it's just absurd how little artists get from that.
I know it's absolutely ridiculous. Just to let you know, I was reading an article a few months ago. Maybe it's still trickling into the US, but in the UK, there's a basket of products that they gauge with regards to the prices and exchanges for tax purposes. And vinyls have always been in this basket for the longest time. And because of the upsurge of purchases of CDs, this product is now back into this basket of products. So like I said, maybe it's still trickling into the US, but it's definitely on an upsurge in the UK.
What I sometimes hear is, I'll say, even to someone who's a peer or an industry person, I'm like, oh yeah, this is my new CD. I happen to have it on me. Would you like a copy? And they'll scratch their head and say, well, I don't know if I have a way to play that anymore. So the folks who seem to want it the most are the ones who are still listening in their car. And a lot of the new cars don't have them. So I kind of feel like the music business and the car designers need to get together.
Exactly.
Totally and work on that, because if everybody had one in their car, maybe that would catch on here more. But again, I'm going to keep doing it. I love listening to CDs. I have so many. I have too many. I don't even have enough places to put them. But for me, it is akin to the vinyl experience. And there are some records that I actually prefer how they sound digitally. They're going for that cleaner, punchier, modern thing. And then it's interesting to hear them on vinyl, and certain albums benefit from that. And others, I think, may not.
When and why did you decide to start your own record label?
It was a pretty organic thing, more so than one would expect. I started making demos and being quite serious and focused about it when I was 13, 14 years old. I had like hundreds of songs already, and they were all very poppy. And I, kind of fancied myself like the next baby Diane Warren, and I wanted them all to be on pop radio.
Yes.
And that was the aesthetic at the time. I was a kid, and that's what I was consuming, and that's what I was creating. As the years went on, I became more refined about my recording techniques. I was really producing my own music, occasionally collaborating, but often just doing it top to bottom myself. And so the line between a demo and a master recording was really, that gap was closing. And I knew that by the time I was going off to college, I had kind of backlogged several albums worth of material. And I think the quality was approaching, this should be released.
Yes.
This is my no apology recording when I'm not saying, oh, well, eventually I'll get a band and I'll maybe add some strings. Like I did it. So from that point, it was just about, how do I find an audience? How do I find my listeners? And there were a handful of examples at the time, Ani DeFranco being one of them, Lorena McKennitt being another. And early on, Indigo Girls were putting out their own work. So I had some virtual mentors, and I would also see folks in the Bay Area in San Francisco, near where I went to school, selling their cassettes at, craft shows, like having their own table with their face on a poster, and this is my music. And I thought, well, this seems very doable. Little did I know, I was super naive. I didn't know all the work that would be involved. But I just decided to be a record label, and I gave myself a name, Empress Records, and I went through a few other names first, and that's the one that really felt me. Within a couple years, I was pressing CDs instead of cassettes. Someone helped me learn Photoshop so I could design the album art. I navigated the ropes of manufacture, and I did it. I created these records. Now, I call them records. I didn't know what to do with them beyond playing the bitter end in New York and selling them from the stage. But eventually, things just sort of happened. Doors open, and there were articles in the New York Times about how unfavorable the music business was to artists. And I remember just reading them and thinking, why would I ever sign to a major label? I would have to be insane. So I just kept at it, and I learned about distribution. A distributor actually approached me to distribute my work once it had been consigned to Tower Records. And things just kind of grew from there.
Wow, that's really amazing. So you referenced earlier that you're going to be opening or being the opening act for Will Young and Hugh Cry. And what else is happening for the rest of this year?
I'm actually chipping away at album number 17, I think it is. So that will come out next year, and I'm just beginning. But it's really exciting for me because I have these brand new infants of songs, and I don't really know how they're going to end up sounding, how they're going to grow up. But I have a lot of ideas, and I'm constantly, journaling about them, making notes, and I'm going to have a cellist, a trumpet player, a drummer, and a guitar player all coming in to do sessions. Yeah, so I'll be overseas in September, and in the back of my mind, of course, I'll have those recordings that I'm going to continue when I come back in November in October, between Will Young and Hue and Cry. So lots to keep me busy and keep it interesting.
I love this game. I know if I had to ask you this question in 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 years, I know your answer will be different every time because there are millions of them. I recognize that and I understand that. I'm not saying favorite, I'm saying top of mind. But if you had to push play to 5 songs by other artists once we finish this conversation, what would those 5 songs be and by whom?
So let's see. Well, it has to be something from Elvis Costello. He's just my favorite. Allison just springs to mind.
Okay.
It's a perfect song. And I'm in songwriting mode. So let's see. Howard Jones, he has a new live album that he just put out. I think it was live at the O2 Arena. I haven't heard it yet, and I'm very eager to. My favorite song by him is No One Is to Blame.
Yes.
So I've got two two ballads in the row there. That's okay.
Yes,
I used
that's
to be
okay.
a DJ, actually. I wouldn't do that on the air, probably. Let's see. Well, my own artist, Grace Pettis, is phenomenal. So anything from her new album down to the letter, I Take Care of Me Now is my favorite track from that record. And it actually reminds me quite a bit of the mental health advocacy from Simone Biles, who we've been seeing just blow us all away at the Olympics, where it's all about keeping your mind as well as your body healthy and taking care of yourself. So, and using that as a metaphor for many other things. So that's another. James Mastro is another artist on Empress. Of course, I'm a proud label mama.
Yes.
And he has a new record out as well. Some of your listeners may know him from playing guitar with Ian Hunter. And he has a beautiful song called My God. And it is so timely with what's going on in the world and all of the violence. And I think it's a beautiful and very pure way to remind us of our humanity. And then let's see, I got one more slot.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so tricky.
Just for this moment.
For this moment. Gosh, Buddy Holly. I mean, he just sprang into my mind.
Yes.
Always a classic. I have his photo on my studio wall and every day. How about that?
Most of them are on my list, except the ones that are on your label. So thank you for mentioning them. I'll definitely add them. So the podcast is listened to throughout the world. As a final message, what would you like to say?
I think just be kind to everybody. We are all universes. And I come back to that all the time. You just never know what someone is going through. And on a really uplifting note, you never know how just smiling or saying hello or, letting them go ahead of you in the line or whatever it is, it could completely alter the chemistry of their day and just set things into positive motion. So it's not hard to do, but it is a discipline. So that's what I would say. Just compassion, kindness. I'm a big hippie at a heart. So.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Celeb Savant. Please follow Barrett on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Celeb Savant. That's CelebSavant.